Check your calendar. 14 days, June 1st. That's the date Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen estimates is when the United States is flat broke, running out of any money to pay our bills. Almost 5 months ago, on January 19th, the United States hit the debt limit, our borrowing limit. Since then, the Treasury Department has been using, quote, extraordinary measures to avoid a default on our bills. That's essentially like running around the living room, lifting cushions, looking for spare change under the cushions. There's also been some prioritizing, meaning trying to decide which of the nation's bills to pay, when, and how much. But June 1st, we run out of luck. We're out of options. If the borrowing cap is not raised or suspended by June 1, the United States will go into default. Think of it like this. That's when the repo man arrives to haul away our nation's car. What would that mean for Americans? Well, last week, after a meeting with congressional leaders, President Biden had this to say about the potential fallout.
Our economy would fall into a significant recession. It would devastate retirement accounts, increase borrowing costs. According to Moody's, nearly 8 million Americans would lose their jobs, and our international reputation would be damaged in the extreme.
So what is the solution? Is it too late to live within our means, like you do in your household? Well, I think so. The nation hasn't done that in decades. Democrats think it might be the solution, the 14th Amendment, that will rescue us. They believe the 14th Amendment allows President Biden to forget Congress, just bypass it, meaning forget the Republicans in resolving the debt ceiling issue. A letter from Democratic senators is now circulating Capitol Hill looking for Democratic signatures. They are urging President Biden to invoke the 14th Amendment, citing Section 4, which reads, in part, the validity of the public debt shall not be questioned. The Democratic senators also included in their letter to their Democratic colleagues, quote, Republicans have made it clear that they are prepared to hold our entire economy hostage unless you, meaning Democrats, accede to their demands to reduce the deficit on the backs of working families. That is simply unacceptable. Well, last week before the letter began circulating among Democrats, President Biden said this about using the 14th Amendment.
I have been considering the 14th Amendment, but the problem is it would have to be litigated.
As of last night, 5 Democratic senators have signed this letter. They are Minnesota Senator Tina Smith, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, Massachusetts Senator Edward J. Markey, Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Harvard Law Professor Emeritus and author of the new book, Get Trump, The Threat to Civil Liberties, Due Process, and Our Constitutional Rule of Law, Alan Dershowitz joins me. Good evening, sir. So, the 14th Amendment, can the Democrats and President Biden use the 14th Amendment to basically bypass the opposing party, here Republicans, and try to raise the debt limit?
Look, I don't like what the Republicans are doing. Everybody's playing a little bit of blackmail here with the American public, but there's no way the 14th Amendment is relevant. And Professor Lawrence Tribe said that years ago, but now that it's in the interest of the Democrats, he's written an article saying, whoops, changed my mind. He's done that on numerous occasions. This is a Professor Tribe special. If you read the 14th Amendment, it's clearly a Civil War amendment. It's designed to assure that the debt incurred by the United States to fight the South will never be questioned or doubted, but the debt incurred by the Confederacy will not be honored by the United States. It is limited to the Civil War context, and it really can't be used in 2023 to solve a political problem. But look, they're prepared to stretch the Constitution in other ways, and why shouldn't they be prepared to stretch the Constitution in this way? But, you know, the 14th Amendment itself uses the following words. It says the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, authorized by law. So basically it says Congress, particularly the House of Representatives, which under the Constitution has the only authority to initiate legislation dealing with money, has to authorize the expenditure by law. And if they're now saying that we're not going to authorize this unless there is a cutback, it's a political debate. And I think the Supreme Court would duck the issue as a political decision on political grounds. But I just don't think it would be constitutional or lawful to rely on the 14th Amendment, which was designed for a completely different purpose. It's just a manipulation of the Constitution for political goals. And I guarantee you one thing, if the shoe were on the other foot, and if the Republicans were trying to play this game, Lawrence Tribe and others would be leading the campaign to say this is ridiculous. The 14th Amendment was designed solely for the Civil War, and it can't be applied to current political issues. It's hypocrisy.
All right. So the only way if I just strip this down to the basic, is that the North would have to declare war on the South, and they'd have to run out of money, and then they could do it that way. That'd be basically the only way it would happen, and that's not going to happen. Am I understanding that's the narrow reading of the 14th Amendment, and I assume any reasonable interpretation arising therefrom?
Yeah. Remember, Democrats are also trying to read another part of the 14th Amendment, the one that says if you've engaged in insurrection against the United States, you can't be president, which meant that people who fought for the South can't be president. They're trying to apply that to Donald Trump now, too. There's no limit to what some academics are prepared to do to help the Democrats hurt Republicans and get Donald Trump. They're playing games with the Constitution. They're weakening the Constitution, and they're making it a political tool, not a tool to govern all people of the United States.
Well, it's sort of interesting. The sort of leading the charge are, the 5 that have signed on to this, 2 of them are from Massachusetts, both home to Harvard, both home to Professor Lawrence Tribe, where, of course, you taught there as well.
Yeah, and he has been an advisor on this issue. We know that. He said that. And so it's again, manipulating, stretching, distorting the Constitution to achieve partisan goals. That's what academics are now doing. More and more. That's what was done in 1954 after Brown versus Board of Education by the South. That's what's going to be done now when the Supreme Court renders unconstitutional race-based affirmative action. You're going to see people trying to circumvent the Constitution. The Constitution has just become another weapon in the war by one political side against the other. That's not what the framers of our great Constitution, what James Madison intended it to be, or the framers of the 14th Amendment intended it to be. It was a Civil War peace treaty, basically. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were designed to stop the war, after the war, and to make things right, freeing the slaves, due process, all of those things. It was not designed to solve an economic, political problem in the year 2023.
Well, on the bright side, it had me reread the 14th Amendment. I haven't read it in a while, and it has me thinking. Anyway, Professor Alan Dershowitz, thank you, sir.
Thank you.